This is just a sample of the audiobook. To get the complete audiobook, access the link posted in the first comment.
Did you know that the first novel in the world was produced by a Japanese noblewoman? Back in ancient times, the Japanese depended on Chinese characters, kanji, to write all sorts of documents and manuscripts, ranging from official letters to census records and poetry. It was only in the Heian period, 794 to 1185 CE, that they began to create their very own writing system known today as kana. While men from the higher social classes would often stick to kanji when producing literary works, kana was mainly used by noblewomen. The most prominent author of the Heian period is known as Murasaki Shikibu, an imperial lady-in-waiting who was responsible for producing the world's first novel called Genji Monogatare, or The Tale of Genji. The novel also provides a detailed insight into the lives and culture of the Japanese people during that era. The history of ancient Japan is filled with interesting events that involved many influential and legendary figures. However, some of the accounts were also infused with Japanese myths, which might make it difficult for curious listeners to distinguish between facts and legends. But you can safely put your concern aside. With this new Enthralling History audiobook, you will discover an array of information and stories of the ancient Japanese, starting with the prehistoric era up until the Heian period, which saw the birth of the first samurai warriors. Here's just a small fraction of what you'll discover. How the Jomon period earned its name in impressive designs of early Japanese pottery. How rice cultivation first arrived in Japan, and the transition into a more civilized society. The legendary kingdom of Yamatai, and how it rose to power. The unique-looking Kofun tombs, and legends behind the persons interred within them. Vicious wars and assassinations of powerful figures in the imperial court. Interesting myths and the origins of Shinto, an indigenous Japanese religion. The flourishing culture and architecture of ancient Japan and the arrival of Buddhism. The bloody conflicts between the two earliest samurai clans, and much, much more. Here's an excerpt from the audiobook. What is not to like about the wonderful land of the rising sun? Ask a person who has just returned from visiting Japan about the things that they like most, and their answers might be the unique Japanese culture, the wondrous buildings that were built many centuries ago, the pleasant weather, especially during spring, when the sakura start to bloom, or even the unbelievable cleanliness of the Japanese cities. To put it simply, words are not enough to describe Japan. Today, Japan is home to over 125 million people. Many people claim that their advanced technologies are astounding, and that their culture is definitely one of a kind. The world's first bullet train, Tokaido Shinkansen, for instance, is one of the most impressive inventions that originated in Japan. Believe it or not, it takes slightly over 3 hours to travel from the capital city of Tokyo to Osaka, which is located more than 500 kilometers, 310 miles, away. This 20th century invention alone proved the nation's excellence in the world of technology. Meanwhile, sumo matches, calming traditional tea ceremonies, Shinto rituals, geisha and kabuki theaters are some of the things that easily distinguish Japanese culture from the rest of the world. But has Japan always been this way? When did the archipelago first witness the birth of Japanese civilization? To the surprise of many back in ancient times, Japan actually developed pretty late compared to its neighboring countries on the Asian mainland. Although the first groups of humans to ever inhabit the Japanese archipelago could be traced back to prehistoric times, it is not until the 4th century BCE that Japan was first introduced to iron technology and agricultural civilization. By this time, China was in the midst of warfare and military reforms. Alexander the Great had already conquered most of the Achaemenid Empire, and the ancient Greek philosopher Plato had already founded his academy, which became a place of study for Aristotle. However, Japan's late start did not stop the Japanese from growing. Although the nation was initially dependent on the influences brought by the immigrants who made their way from the Asian mainland, and diplomatic envoys, the people gradually thrived, reaching a turning point by the 8th century CE.